Hey, what's up guys, it's BenBonk and welcome back to the 46th Slimekeep Devlog. In this devlog, I added a bunch of new upgrades to the game and improved these slime pets upgrades. Also, if you're new here, Slimekeep is a fast-paced roguelike where you must kill and capture slimes to stop the corruption that's infected your land. Without further ado, let's get into it. So to start off, let's talk upgrades. Right now, there are about 30 upgrades in Slimekeep, and I personally thought that this was enough, but unanimously, my playtesters for the game didn't. You see, right now, most of the upgrades in the game were pretty minor to say the least. They might increase the speed of your dash or give you more movement speed, just pretty small stuff that didn't make a huge difference in the long run themselves. And this was a bit of a problem. My playtesters really felt like the game was lacking a number of run-defining upgrades, where these upgrades would potentially change the player's playstyle for that run and be a whole lot more than just slightly increasing an arbitrary stat. So with the plan to add some more impactful upgrades, I got to work. First, I made a list of some potential ideas I had along with some of my playtesters' ideas and started drawing up a bunch of art for each of these upgrades. And after quite a bit, we now had the art for a whole bunch of new upgrades that I planned on adding, so let's get to making. First up, we had what I call Balloon. Now before I showcase this upgrade, we can see in game that I have 7 health and I can shoot these 2 weapons. The standard pistol does 1 damage and the super pistol does 2 damage. But now, if I get the Balloon upgrade, my health will drop to a maximum of 4, but in return, I will gain 50% more damage to all my weapons. So now, the Super Pistol will do 3 damage instead of 2, and the Standard Pistol will do 2 damage, because unfortunately there aren't decimals in the game, and I just made it round up. So that right there is the Balloon upgrade, and as you can kind of see, I really wanted to emphasize this kind of risk-reward behavior with the player. But next up, we had the counterpart to this upgrade being Slime Armor. This upgrade will increase the player's health by 3, but make them do 50% less damage. Now, I did make all weapons do a minimum of 1 damage, because I felt like it would be weird to have weapons do 0 damage, but yeah, that right there is the Slime Armor upgrade. And for the next one, we have Chili Oil. Again, this upgrade has a benefit, but also a downside. In this case, Chili Oil gives a slight increase to the player's fire rate for all weapons, but makes projectiles considerably more inaccurate. So in the case of the fish weapon or the Gatling bolt, this inaccuracy can be quite noticeable, but I do think this makes for a pretty fun upgrade. Next up, we had the Dasher upgrade, which was a bit of an interesting one. As you know, the starter pistol normally does 1 damage, but with the Dasher upgrade, if the player has 0 dashes or uses them all, they will temporarily gain a 50% damage increase, making the starter pistol do 2 damage. I think this is quite an interesting dynamic, as it might encourage the player to do the opposite of normal in conserving dashes, and instead make the player dash around in quick succession to gain that damage boost. But moving on, we had a real fun one, being the Double Bullets upgrade. As you probably guessed, this upgrade makes any weapon shoot 2 bullets instead of 1. But as you also probably guessed, I wasn't just going to let the player double their damage like that, so this upgrade comes with decreased weapon accuracy and a 50% damage reduction. Regardless of these downsides, I still think this upgrade is definitely worth it and just super fun to mess around with. But if you thought I was going to stop at double bullets, you were wrong, because boom, we also have the Triple Bullets upgrade, which makes the player shoot 3 bullets instead of 1. But this time with even less damage and more inaccuracy compared to the Double Bullets counterpart. Still, this one is just so much fun to use. And it's also fun to use your mouse button to visit the Slimekeep Steam page and hit the wishlist button. Seriously, it helps me out a ton and takes a few seconds to do so, so please consider clicking the link in the description. Anyways, moving on, we now have the Hoarder upgrade. This upgrade simply makes it so the more slime balls the player has, the more damage the player will do, which is obviously capped to a certain point. I think this creates a bit of an interesting dynamic, as it might be worth it for the player to not spend their hard-earned slime balls on a new weapon or upgrade, so they won't miss out on the damage increase from this upgrade. And the counterpart to this upgrade is the Spender upgrade, which makes the player do more damage the less slime balls they have, which again creates for a bit of an interesting dynamic. Moving on, we have the Mysterious Potion, and this potion is quite weird. On one hand, it makes all slimes in the game grow much faster. But on the other hand, it makes the contact damage from these slimes do 2 damage instead of 1 to the player. Overall, is this potion a good thing? I don't even really know, so yeah, it'll be interesting to see how people use it. But next up, we have another upgrade pair, being T1 Sauce and T2 Sauce. For T1 Sauce, it makes all Tier 1 weapons in the game do 50% more damage, which is quite powerful in itself. But the trade-off here is that all Tier 2 weapons will do 25% less. And then for Tier 2 Sauce, all Tier 2 weapons would now do 50% more damage, but Tier 1 weapons would do 25% less. I might adjust these percentages at some point, but overall, I do think this is a cool concept for upgrades. But for the final upgrade I added for now, we had the remote control. With the remote control, the player could now control the direction of all projectiles that they shoot with their mouse. I just think this looks super cool and is really powerful, so nice upgrade overall. But yeah, that's all the new upgrades that I made. It's not like any single one of these upgrades will make a huge difference to the player's playstyle, but I definitely think it's a step in the right direction. And also, if you're wondering what this looks like, here is the player fighting the Slime King with a bunch of these upgrades, which just looks awesome in my opinion. But on the topic of upgrades, still a pretty big issue was the player getting the upgrades or weapons that they wanted. You can only really purchase upgrades or weapons from the in-person shops and the computer shop. And if the shopkeepers don't give you an upgrade or weapon that you like, well, you're kind of out of luck. So to combat this, I added in this tip jar to the Upgrade Guru room. The player can now tip 10 slime balls to effectively re-roll the upgrades and get a chance at getting one that they like more. The same goes for the weapon shopkeeper in this tip jar right here, where the player can re-roll weapons. And overall, I definitely think this was an important addition to make, as I wouldn't want the player to potentially have tons of slime balls to spend and be offered no good weapons or upgrades. Now, still staying on the topic of upgrades, let's talk about the upgrades for the slime pet. If you don't know, the player can upgrade their slime pet through capturing slimes and using these special types of currency. But the issue is, similar to the player's upgrades in the game, many of these pet upgrades were quite underwhelming and just not too powerful themselves. For example, Sponge Slime would just make the pet absorb projectiles, which was pretty underwhelming, and Spring Shoes would increase attack force, which frankly, I don't even know what that means myself. So I set out to change this and drafted up a big list of changes that I wanted to make. With a few ideas in mind, I first made some small changes to some of the lower tier upgrades, like making the Mace upgrade no longer decrease the pet's movement speed, making the 5-second energy upgrade increase the pet's movement speed as well as attack speed, and made the Juice upgrade now increase the pet's damage instead of basically doing nothing before. Then we had some more complicated changes. Starting with the Ranger category on the left here, I changed the previous Wizard's Touch upgrade to Ricochet Bullets, where now with this upgrade, when the pet damages an enemy's slime, a bullet will ricochet off of the slime in a random direction, potentially damaging other slimes in the game. Then we had some new tier 2 ranger upgrades such as Triple Goop, where all pet projectiles would be tripled. So if I get Ricochet Bullets and Triple Goop, the pet will now spit out 3 damaging projectiles upon attacking a slime. But if I pair Triple Goop with the previously existing Slime Projectile upgrade, which stops the pet from physically attacking, instead has them shoot projectiles towards slimes, the slime will now shoot 3 projectiles instead of 1. Then for the other tier 2 upgrade, we had Super Goop, which would increase the projectile damage and speed. So overall, the player really has to choose which one they prefer. But next, for the Brute category, remember that Wizard's Touch upgrade that I scrapped from the Ranger category? Well, I moved it here, so with this upgrade, the pet will now teleport directly to slimes to attack them. And to pair with this upgrade, we had a new tier 2 upgrade being Magic Touch, which makes teleported attacks do more damage and have a chance to spawn magical projectiles. Here's what this looked like in action, which I thought looked pretty cool, and I liked how there was a bit of these mini synergies now inside of these slime pet upgrades. But we still weren't done, so next up we had the passive section, which I changed the previously pretty weak tier 1 upgrades to now have this Poison Shroom, which gives the pet a chance to poison enemies upon attacking them. This one is pretty powerful in my opinion, and can definitely help stack on that passive damage. But we also had Ice Cream alongside it, which gives the player a chance to freeze or slow down enemies when attacking them. It's really just up to what the player prefers between these two, but overall I definitely think they're an improvement over the previous upgrades. So yeah, that is all the new Slime Pet upgrades, which I'm pretty happy with overall, and I think definitely make the Slime Pet at least a bit more exciting and powerful. However, I still had one more thing that I wanted to do with this Slime Pet. Mainly, right now, an issue I found was that the Slime Pet only attacks slimes that you attack first with your weapon or tag. And this was intentional, but at the same time, it felt a little limiting that the pet couldn't just go out and automatically attack slimes in rooms, so I wanted to fix this. And to do this, I made it so now the player can press the C key on their keyboard to switch from manual mode on the pet to auto mode. And if I switch to this auto mode here and enter a room, the pet will now automatically go and just attack a random enemy in the room. And it'll keep doing this until I switch back to manual mode, which I can do at any time. I think this is just a really nice change and should hopefully give the player a bit more control over their slime pet. But yeah, that's all I have for this devlog. I hope you liked it, and please do consider wishlisting Slimekeep on Steam. Anyways, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.